Hey, good evening, everybody. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and I dearly apologize for being late tonight. It took me a while to get up into the upper atmosphere up here, and but I'm here now, and hopefully some of you will be here too to join me tonight on another edition of Sunday Night Astro Live. Oh, we got to turn me down there. Let's see. We got Judy and Liz and Dawn, and there's Fifth Wall Radio. What's happening? Hi, Linda. Gordon's back. How about that? Nice to see you, Linda. Cato, Beth Berry. There's Joan. How is everybody tonight? Had a little bit of a sore throat today. I was having a bit of a sore throat. I actually thought about maybe even not doing tonight's show, but the show must go on. We may be looking at the greatest plague in modern history, but the show must go on. That's right. We all have our appointed roles to play in the Grand Theater of Life, the Globe Theater. See that behind me? The Globe Theater of Life. So I'm here to play my role tonight in your life, which is to bring you some astrological content, which happens every Sunday night here over on the 11th House channel. If you tune in Tuesday through Thursday, you'll see me on the 15 Minutes of Flame channel. It's a different channel, slightly different content, actually pretty different, but with some astrology sprinkled in on top. And then on Friday, we have the Friday Forecast. And and last Friday show was really good. We had the Cremies with a cameo guest appearance by Ani Brito down in Florida. And of course, Sunday night would not be a Sunday night show without this guy. You know who I'm talking about. This guy right here. Let's get him on. Let's get him on cat cam. Jasper cam. There he is. There he is. Jasper in space. I love it. Jasper, you got to give it up for your fans, brother. You got to give it up for your fans. They love you. They love the Jasper. You're a brand. Oh, look at this, getting all tweaked out. Psychedelic 1960s. Cube iron butterfly. In-A-Gadda-Da-Vida, baby. That's a heavy song. Don't you know that I love you? All right, we're here. Sorry, I have to have these little moments of frivolity every now and then because sometimes the world is a heavy place. And there is a heavy energy and a heavy vibe that is now starting to encircle the planet, whether you want to embrace the heavy vibe or not. It is starting to encircle the planet. So perhaps we can look at some things tonight which may help lift our spirits, or at the very least give us some insight into what's going on. I've got some interesting charts that we can look at. I decided to bring Joe Biden's chart out of the closet, air it out a little bit. Joe himself needs a little airing out as well. He made just an incredible error today. And what's interesting is that nobody in the mainstream media is talking about his error. It's a really bad error. He said that he couldn't get reelected, needed to get reelected, and that Trump needed to be reelected. I mean, it was really bad. Really, really bad. And of course, all the Democrats are just falling in line to support him because, number one, that's what the party does. It does that. And then number two, they're waiting for whoever is going to be on the undercard with him to step in and either be a part of a brokered convention or to place themselves strategically in the number two position so that if anything happens to Biden, like, for instance, become officially senile, then that person will be poised and ready to go to lead the country into whatever stage it's being led into, other than the one that we have right now. Oh, Jasper's decided to turn around, give you a really good shot of the man right there. He's shy. He's a little shy. The Jasper cat is shy. But he is a lion. He's a total lion. Speaking of lion, we got a Leo moon coming up here in a couple days. Right now, we're approaching the full moon. This is called the worm moon. Did you know that? Were you aware that this is the worm moon? It is the worm moon. It's also called the crow moon because this is the last full moon of winter before we move into the first full moon of spring. How about that? So this is called the crow moon or the worm moon. And the worm moon has to do with I guess the casings of the worms begin to appear under this moon, which means that they're starting to do their worm thing. And that's always good for planting a garden. You got to get those casings in the garden. So it's also a super moon. We're going to have 3 of them this year, and they're all in succession, March, April, May. So we'll have this moon, obviously, in Virgo. The next super moon will be in Libra, and then the following super moon after that will be in the sign of Scorpio. So one could make a leap, perhaps not such a Grand Canyon leap, but a leap nonetheless, that when the moon seems to be closer to the Earth, things tend to happen. For instance, we can have seismic activity when the moon appears to be closer to the Earth. We can also have more emotional content in our lives. Again, if the moon is full and is seemingly closer to the Earth. And I think that this is true. This is true because they have made studies, as you know, that there are connections between criminal acts and full moons. And it'd be interesting to see which full moons actually produce the most criminal acts. There's this meme going around the internet about mass murderers and astrological signs. And somebody decided they had it out for all the mutable signs and just cherry picked all the Gemini, Virgo, Pisces, and Sagittarian mass murders. But trust me, there's some real dirty, ugly mass murderers that are connected to other signs. So it's not just the mutable signs, but it's an interesting theory as to why the mutable signs might be perhaps a bit more given to some form of, I don't know what, sociopathology, violence, murder. It's interesting, but mildly so, because as you know, I'm a Virgo and I have to defend my sign a little bit, just like everybody else gets to defend their sign. People get a little uptight when I crack on certain, but I love all the signs. How could I not? I'm an astrologer. I am an astrologer. I have to fall in love with all the signs in order to embrace them, in order to take them into my being so I can understand them. If I hated one sign or despised one sign, or, I couldn't do that. I'd go, oh, you're a Gemini. Oh, well, I can't really about that. Sorry, you have to go see another astrologer, right? I mean, it doesn't really work that way. But I do find the various signs to have very interesting, as I say, picadillos. I think I had some chips with picadillo the other day. Oh, that's pico de gallo. Well, that's right. Yeah, it's a little bit different. Yeah, but I love all the signs. I do. And they all are quite interesting. I've been getting a lot of Sages lately. I've been getting a lot of Sag energy from clients. That's been good. I like reading for Sag people. They can take the truth. Jasper, I believe, is a Taurus. Aren't you, Jasper? You are a Taurus. Should we play his song? We haven't heard his song in a while. Let me play his song so that you guys can have it in your head for the next 3 days. I know. I'm just a kind, generous person that way. Let's Jasper, I got to play your song, buddy. You won't be able to hear it, though. Because this is the astrological show, and if we're gonna really play that song, well then we got to play that song.
Jasper, the astrological cat, look up your chart, show you right where you're at. It's Jasper, the astrological cat.
I love the little glockenspiel that just fades into infinity there at the end. Nice job. Nice job, Gabriel and Caroline. Very good stuff. Appreciate that. So how is everybody? How are you doing out there? Hey, Fredericksburg, how is everybody? No, so how is everybody tonight? You guys doing okay? It's kind of a heavy time. I mean, we can't skirt around the kind of the heavy vibe. I mean, it's a heavy vibe out there, and we can't really skirt around it, but we can navigate through it. We can have, well, you know, it might be really outrageous, a really outrageous statement in a lot of ways, to just be insanely positive and insanely happy during a time that's really kind of heavy, intense, and bringing on feelings of more isolation. Gee, that's all we need now, right? Is more isolation, more isolation, and more disconnected. More disconnected sort of feelings and space from one another, as if we aren't already isolated and disconnected enough. Let's take another big heaping of that, please. Another large scoop of that in our lives. So maybe really the thing to do is to, if you really want to bust the system, be happy. Be happy. I mean, you can know the score, you can know what's going on, but you can always choose to be happy. Be happy and have something, have a song of joy in your heart, right? Go back and listen to the Astrological Cat song. That'll make you happy, at least for a few seconds. But I think that might be a very interesting thing for all of us to practice. And I've been really working on this in my own life. This is a Virgo moon night, right? We're on a Virgo moon. And so I'm doing my best to refrain from indulging in the into the critical emotional territory that a Virgo moon can often bring up. But I do think it's a good strategy, and I do think that we owe it to ourselves in a lot of ways to find the things that are happy and joyful and prosperous and abundant and life-giving in our lives. And like I said, I've been working on this, you know, because I have a tendency to be quite cynical. And I've been tempering my cynicism a bit. That doesn't mean I don't go through the things. It doesn't mean I don't see the things. But I've been tempering my cynicism a bit because it's better. It's better when we are rounding up, right? We're rounding up. We're getting to the next number, you know. And I feel like that's really a very, very positive step we can all take in our lives. And it's even like in my chart. I'm a Scorpio rising 28 degrees, but the way that I work with astrology, and I think it's a really important factor, especially when you have an intercepted house in the first house, is I try to lift that Sagittarian energy up a bit more. So I'm not just always gazing through the Scorpionic lens. And it's a better place to live and a better place to be. Doesn't mean that everything's all Pollyanna, but trust me, it's had a salutary effect on my health and my well-being and being able to hang out with my fellow humans. So maybe we could just dial that up a little bit. Be at times maybe even outrageously claim that we are happy and we are whole and we are in many ways and respects joyous beings in the midst of a time that may demand that we think otherwise. Try it on for size. See how it works. Let's get back together next week and we'll discuss the results. So we got a lot to talk about. We have a whole lot to talk about. Why don't we bring up, as we always do at the beginning of the show, the chart of the moment, so we can look at where everything is. We get to see that the big bright moon. If you're able to look outside, or tonight maybe get outside, you'll be able to see the moon. You'll be able to see it in all of its kind of glorious fullness, although it won't be officially full until tomorrow night. But don't let that stop you. The Virgo moon. Both my parents had a Virgo moon. I feel for them. You know, we've talked about this before, how in families we can see that the traits of the parents are passed on in many cases through the kids via the sun sign and the moon sign. It's very interesting to see how that happens. And I've seen it quite a bit, actually. So then we get into generational astrology and what we're working at vis-a-vis the moon and the family memory or the family line or the family chain. You can deal with that, right? I mean, if you understand where your mother's chart was, or I'm sorry, your mother's moon was, and your father's moon in their charts, that's not hard to find. Really, it's not hard to find. I mean, even if you don't know their birth time, the moon is going to be in a sign unless it's changing, and sometimes that does happen during the day. It does go into kind of a changing phase or void of course phase. But you could cast a chart for one or both of your parents, and you'll be able to find out where the moon is. And in many regards, that is I would call it the family karma, but that is part of what you're dealing with the family line. That and also what's in your eighth house. So we can look to the moon to see what we're trying to resolve with our families, and we can also look to the eighth house because the eighth house is a house that does represent uh, our inheritance, our physical inheritance, our emotional inheritance, and our genetic inheritance. Hey, Jasper. Jasper just stuck out his paw. He wants to do a shake. He's doing a paw shake right now. You want to see it? I guess, where are we now with Jasper? Can we do the paw shake? There it was. Now he wants to bite my hand. But he stretched out those paws, man. Just went for it. So yeah, so look at where the moons are in your parents' charts, and if you're a parent, you can look at where your moon is and where the moon of your sons or daughters is. You can also see sort of what you're working out there as well. Some of the emotional issues, the family issues that are connected to that sign. So, ironically, or maybe not ironically, my son also has a Libra moon. So there we go. We both have Libra moons, and we're working on the Libra moon channel together. Do you see how it works? My parents had Virgo sons. I turned out to be a Virgo. You'll find this. I'm sure some of you in the chat room have already experienced this and looked at it. But those are pretty interesting keys. What do I learn from it? Well, you have to understand what the sign the moon is in. That can be very helpful. And then you have to look at even a time where it is in your own chart, and that can help you locate the lesson that you're learning through your parents in the healing of the family line, which is really what this is all about, because it's important to heal the family line. And when we heal the family line, we create greater harmony into the future, and even potentially timelines that aren't necessarily linear. I highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Dave Ramsey, who's a Taurus, by the way, he talks a lot about this on the money side of things when he gets people on the show and they're in debt, and by getting them out of debt, or by them getting out of debt, they heal their family's history and their how do I say this their historical line with money. And even though the moon doesn't necessarily represent money, it does represent our emotional connection to our resources in our life. So there's some food for thoughts by looking into where your parents' moons are and trying to understand where the healing, the historical context, and the healing of the family line can take place. See you later, Jasper. Thanks for dropping in. Astro Cat with the cameo tonight. He'll be back here on Tuesday. He appears here Tuesday through Thursday on the 15 Minutes of Flame show. All right, let's look at the chart of the moment. Let's get into that. I'm feeling a little goofy tonight. Sometimes you just have to say what the fuck, right? All right, where are we? Where's that chart of the moment? There it is. Where is it for? Oh, I guess it's okay. It's not too far from here. It's got a bit of a different. It's got a different origination point, but not too far off. We can roll with this. We can roll with this. And there's a reason why that this point of origination is in there. Okay. There we go. Nice clean chart, huh? We have a definite funnel chart tonight. Look at that. That is one clean funnel right there. Everything's funneling Virgo moon. We have, of course, the full moon, and there is the moon sun opposition. And we have a very tight conjunction with Sun Neptune tonight. I think you people are going to sleep well tonight. That's my sense. You're going to sleep well tonight. This is a good aspect for sleeping. And the only exception is that we got a full moon. It's okay. But I think that the Sun Neptune conjunction kind of overrides the sort of the nervousness and at times a bit anxious, the anxiousness of the Virgo moon. But this is a very interesting conjunction. If we were dialed in on a new moon right now, it'd be even more interesting because of this receptivity that would be available. But this is actually a pretty good. This is a pretty interesting, I'd say, 24-hour period where I think you can get into some creative visualization and dreaming and doing or getting things done or doing without doing. This is a very interesting conjunction. Next year, Neptune will be around 20. So we'll get this once a year, obviously, until Neptune finally leaves Pisces. But whether it's a nocturnal dream or a waking dream or a daydream, or even tonight when you go to bed, it would be a kind of an interesting. It would be an interesting exercise to, I wouldn't necessarily say program your dreams, but get in touch with kind of where you are tonight when you go to sleep. Because I think would be this 24-hour period is where things could be revealed via the Virgo full moon. And actually, how do I say this? Being intentional about it. Like, ask what you need to know. What do you need to know? What do you need to see? What do you need to feel? What part of this experience can you bring to your life? The illumination of this super moon. And I'm going to take the Virgo moon out of its kind of critical territory. And I'm going to bring in some other elements to this moon and not just have it be some kind of, hazmat experience in the 12th house, at least the 12th house for now, because this moon is in trine with both Mars and Uranus and Venus. So the trine energy actually has a very different effect on this full moon than other moons. Here we have the blending of Venus and the moon together, which is quite nice and very harmonious in a lot of ways. And Uranus brings a touch of innovation, and it brings a touch of genius and insight. And the thing about Virgo is it's a sign that, of course, is quite analytical, and it loves to problem solve. Virgo is a great problem solver. And we have these astrological forces that are they're adding in and they're blending into the potential to get some real insight in your life on an emotional level, and in a way where it's not so raw and naked and just that kind of unrelenting criticism that the Virgo moon can drum up. So I think this is actually a really interesting full moon experience, over the course of the next 24 hours, because we're still going to be in that full moon tomorrow night. The moon is going to move into closer trine with both Mars and Jupiter. And because of its proximity now, at the very least, with Venus, there's also some very practical potentiality that is connected with resources. And, this is also very much taking care of oneself. We see with the moon the ability to, how do we nurture ourselves? How do we take care of our emotional body? How do we take care of our immediate circle? To me, that's what the moon, one of the things that the moon is connected with. So I see this as being very interesting in terms of, well, let's say, for instance, you wanted to explore new work, or let's say, for instance, you were freaked out about the coronavirus, and you're saying to yourself, well, holy shit, what's going to happen here? Is my life and my work going to suck? Is it going to fall off the map? Am I going to have to work from home? Is my Uber job going to be shut down? I mean, so these are all valid questions too, by the way. These are all valid questions. But this 24-hour period, I think, could be quite helpful. Try not to get into fear. This is not really a great fear time, even though with the Neptune-Sun conjunction, trust me, whatever you're feeling will be greatly amplified with that Neptune-Sun conjunction. So you want to stay out of fear mode as much as possible and take advantage. We're dealing with a lot of Earth here, and Earth is quite practical. It's very, very practical. So step into your dream body and begin to ask, what is it? What do you need to do in order to gain insight, gain practical knowledge? What do you need to do in order to have a, how do I say this? A more interiorized view of your own self-worth and bolster. This is another piece around this now too, is that we all tend to be quite critical at various stages of our experience, right? Some days more critical than others. There's a lot of interactivity with the moon here, with Venus and Uranus and Mars and Jupiter. And so perhaps the strategy that would be an interesting one to employ is, instead of being super critical or being moved to kind of being, oh, I don't have enough, I should have done things differently in my life. And there's a lot of that going around, by the way. Look at what you do have. Look at what you do have and see your resources that are available in your life, both resources that are on the table and resources that you haven't thought about. Because do you think that there is some power here in realigning and reframing some essential items and essential tools for who you are? This is a good one. I think this is a good full moon. So step into it and don't drop into the Sun-Neptune conjunction, which is just kind of an overriding fear program. I mean, whatever you're thinking and feeling and experiencing over the course of the next couple of days, the veil is really, really thin here with the Sun-Neptune conjunction. So wherever it is in your chart, that's where you should be paying attention. To it. Let's go back down here. I don't have the south node here, but the south node is getting really close. We got the true node / north node at 5 Cancer, and we have the south node right down here at 4. And this is so. I'm going to drop into a little bit of mundane stuff right now, and talk about things like, well, how about the government? As if I never talk about the government. One of the things that we've been exploring, and it's something that I was pretty adamant about when I did the winter forecast with Regina, and hopefully we get to do the spring one here coming up pretty soon. And I remember when we sat down and we did that, I believe that was in the beginning of December, if I'm not mistaken. And I was pretty clear that the first part of this year was going to be very tough, and maybe a lot of 2020 was going to be really, really tough. And mostly based on the eclipses that we were going to deal with, but clearly there's some other factors involved as well. The Venus retrograde, Mars being in Aries for most of the year, the Mars retrograde, the first Mercury retrograde, Saturn-Pluto conjunction. I mean, you just look at the lineup, and back in December, I was like, holy shit, this is going to be a pretty intense time. And I remember, Regina at the end of that forecast saying, well, this is it, this is why we're here. Um, we signed up to be here. And it it's kind of gone that way. I hate to say it, but it's kind of gone that way. It's been a very intense year so far. I think we can all pretty much agree on that. It's been a fairly powerful year, and we're only 3 months in. So, um, that's so one of the things that I talked about with Regina, and I've been talking about this for a while, is with this South Node in Capricorn, and how we're witnessing. How do I say this? How we're witnessing the absolute incompetency of governments. We're witnessing this now, and we have been for a while. And they've just been showing their cards right and left and right and left and right and left. And now we're starting to see this with things like the CDC, which is a strange organization. In the failure, right, with this South Node down here in Capricorn. Now, finally, it's separated out from Mars, considerably, 9 degrees. But how can if we're paying attention, if we're really paying attention, how can we at any level begin to put our faith into these institutions which have this incredible ability to just fuck things up? Just think about that. I mean, I talked about this last week. I think I talked about it on Tuesday, where they brought some of the cruise ship people to San Antonio, and they gave this one person 3 corona tests, and before they got the release of the third one, they let her go. And she went off to the mall, and she had herself a burger and bought a few things. But the part that a lot of people don't know about is that the CDC was going to release everybody in the mall. They were actually tabling that. I mean, that was like incredibly mind blowing. I mean, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to instill a sense of confidence? It's like, oh yeah, it's okay. Just go shopping. Oh, see, we dropped them all up at the mall. Why did they just put hi? We just escaped the Royal Crown Princess, and now we're here to shop. Why didn't they just give T-shirts like that to everybody that they drop at the mall? And that way they could really take credit for that. You see what I'm talking about? And then they start throwing these test kits around that don't do shit. Sorry, I couldn't quite hear you. Could you please repeat what you said? Oh, Alexa's listening to me. She said, sorry, I can't quite hear that. Sorry, I'm not sure what you want me to change. Now she wants me to change something. I never use Alexa, by the way. Sneaky bitch. Anyway, we're seeing this again and again. We see these test kits, they don't work. The strategy, what strategy? There is no strategy. We're just going to let this thing run. Right? This is South Node in Capricorn. So what should you really be doing? You should be paying attention to the true node in Capricorn, or Cancer rather, which is take care of yourself. Take care of yourself and take care of your family. Now, of course, we've seen some great extremes. Costco stock went up $40 a share, by the way. Gee, I wonder why. So there is, as we get down to the final degrees of Cancer here, we can see that it's becoming more intense. And more intense on both sides, by the way. So as this side begins to fuck up more, this side says, I got to take care of business and do this myself. Right? As above, so below. It's right there. Right there. I feel like we're going to run into some trouble when these nodes shift. And we got trouble ahead. And when that South Node goes into Sagittarius, Sagittarius represents law. It represents law. And we're going to have some stuff going on with the LAW law. That's my sense. That is my sense, because everything feels like it's trending now towards some kind of quarantine and lockdown. They can't look, they're not going to shut down everything. They have to have business as usual. Oh, here's another great one. Here's another great one. This story, this guy that tests positive in Boston. Well, he's tested positive for coronavirus in Boston. And they released him. They wouldn't. He came off the plane, I believe, from China, and he was experiencing some symptoms, and he wouldn't allow them to test him. I think that's what it was. And then he decided to go to school. He goes to university back in Boston, so he's hanging out. The student union. He's Chinese, by the way. But he basically said, "Screw you! I'm not going to be treated by you." And he starts to run off and go to the cafeteria and breathe on a few plates, cough on a few steam tables. I mean, it's just completely incompetent. It's like, oh, we don't want to profile people, or I don't know. It's just crazy. It's crazy. It's totally crazy. So the big money, the good money is here, right there, boys and girls, right there. It's that true note in Cancer. We got Mars Jupiter conjunction. Mars is slowly creeping up on Jupiter. They're going to catch up here in roughly about 10 days. About 10 days with that Mars Jupiter conjunction. That'll be powerful. Let's see what the big GOV decides to kick into action at that point. I just think that this transit of Mars is going to be very intense. This is not going to be your typical transit of Mars over the course of the next 3 weeks, because Jupiter is it's connected to good fortune and beneficence and abundance and all these things, but it also represents expansion, so it brings you more of something. So are we going to get more Capricornian influence in our lives? And is Mars going to kick in and really kind of ram that thing home? And then right after that, we're going to have that Mars Pluto. I don't know. This whole I talked about this last week. This whole Mars transit through Capricorn, conjuncting Jupiter Pluto. And that Mars is a run into the U.S. Pluto, which is at 26 degrees. So we're getting really close to the Pluto conjunction with the United States, which happens next year. But Mars is going to run right into that. This is going to be a very interesting time. And then we're going to have that Mars Saturn conjunction that's coming as well. And to me, that represents significant limitation in a lot of ways. And then we've got Mars in Aquarius. That could be very rebellious. I can see this getting played out as Mars transits. Like, this is kicking in, more government kicking in, bigger government kicking in. Pluto, there's extreme action. I can see that extreme action with the Mars Pluto conjunction. And then we have Mars Saturn conjunction, which is limitation. And then Mars moves into Aquarius, and it's like, open warfare. Not really, but Mars in Aquarius is not going to sit down, and that's a extremely rebellious energy. Like, good luck enforcing a quarantine or a lockdown when Mars is going through Aquarius. No, people are not going to like that. Not going to like that. And the United States chart is the third house in the United States chart is ruled by Aquarius in the United States chart. So that's all like local and travel. That's local and travel. That's interesting because Saturn's moving into that part of the chart for the U.S. I don't know. I just think that I don't think people are going to want to stay home. We're a country that's used to moving about freely, speaking free, moving freely. These are things that some of us still value. Not everybody does. So when I see Mars going to Aquarius, it's like, they're like, don't fence me in. Do not fence me in. It's also quite ideological too. And we're living in a very ideological time, extremely ideological time. Um, but I do like for now, at the very least, these sextiles which are happening right now. I talked about this as being sort of peaceful and pleasant and slightly mystical, allowing yourself to dream. But there's also some constructive energy here, just some creative energy involved here as well. So it's not just dreaming and contemplating and being placid without the potential to do something with it, right? And when we come from this direction to this direction, it almost feels like there is I wouldn't say it's forced, but we are having to deal with these very Capricornian kinds of realities in our life: business, supply chains, government, rules, regulations, work to some degree. But there are some interesting opportunities here that can emerge. Now, one of the things we're gonna watch out for is we've got Mercury in its retrograde right now. It's getting ready to station. And let's see, I think it's stationed. So is it tomorrow? Where's the moon? The moon isn't. No, it's stations. I believe. I think it is Monday. I think it's Tuesday. Mercury stations on Tuesday, and then it goes direct when we hit that Libra moon. That's going to be an interesting time. Now, you have to pay attention as to what's happening with oil. This is very, very important. Very important, because remember, we started off with Mercury retrograde, and it was, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, right around 13 degrees, right around there, and began to go retrograde. Pisces represents oil, petroleum, gas, any of the liquids, not really coal. Pisces, I don't think represents coal. That's more of a Taurus thing. Anyway, pay attention to what's going on with petroleum this week. Apparently, Warren Buffett is telling his investors that he's going to back off on buying into oil, petroleum. That means what that means is that they're getting ready for the big reset. They're getting ready to plug in the green economy. And this goes hand in glove with what I was talking about earlier in the week, or I think, what was it? Maybe it was last week, when I found that post where those two guys were over. This one guy was overhearing these two cops who were being offered positions at a renewable energy plant somewhere in the Midwest, because Trump supposedly is going to let go of the oil subsidies. And that actually makes sense, because now we've got Warren Buffett saying that he's not going to go long on oil, right? He's just not going to do it. He's going to start to move away from oil. Well, why is he doing that? Because he knows that the subsidies are probably going to end. And and by the way, the Dow will open low tomorrow based on some of the news around oil. Aramco underperformed with its IPO, significantly underperformed. And if you don't know Aramco, it's the IPO that was put together by Ben Salman and Kushner and the guys at SoftBank. Not doing well. So that's significant. That's a really significant piece of news. And it'll be interesting to see what happens when Mercury goes direct this week and goes back through Pisces again. That'll be quite interesting to find out what we'll learn about this situation with petroleum and oil. They're looking at being $30 a barrel. Man, that's really low. 40. It's been at about 40 for a while. It's looking like 30. And if that's the case, then what we're going to see is some Uh, some lower performing stock prices. That's for sure. Definitely lower performing stock prices. But it's more than that because we don't really make anything here in this country anymore. That just does not happen. It doesn't happen. But what we do have is you have a lot of oil, and a lot of petroleum, a lot of gas. And that's been helping keep the economy afloat since we don't really make anything. Well, if that stuff begins to be marginalized, or they are making a very, they haven't made it yet, but they're really making an open statement that they're going to go towards renewables. And everybody's like, oh, that's great, that's great, that's great. Well, there's a whole paradigm shift that goes along with that. Whole paradigm shift. So I think we'll find out more as Mercury moves forward, and when it does hit Neptune, in what 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks, 2.5 weeks when it hits Neptune, that's going to be a really interesting time because I think the talk will, I mean, certainly we'll be talking about the virus. That's not going to go away, by the way. The virus talk is not going to go away. It's not going to go away. But the other piece that we're going to be talking about will be oil and petroleum and gas. So what does that mean to you? You know, I talked about last week, or, you know, if you are into the stock market and you do want to invest, you know, you may want to look at renewable energy because whether you like it or not, they're going to invest in it. That's where the new money's going to go. And everything has been lined up from a corporate level. I mean, you just watch commercials and they'll tout how green they are and how hard they're working to reduce the carbon footprint. I mean, are you kidding me? You know, so are they going to, I mean, they all have the same talking points now. There's nobody saying anything different in terms of advertising. They're all supporting the same paradigm position. So it's coming, whether you like it or not, or I like it or not, or whether we can shout it down and refute it with scientific basis or fact or theory. It's coming, for better or worse. For better or worse, we're really kind of at a fork in the road, aren't we? You know, we really are. It feels like, you know, I talked about how, you know, this is a time where the last vestiges of the 20th century are shutting down. This is it. They're just closing the gates. They're closing the gates. And, you know, the gates open back up and we have the quote unquote reset, it's going to be a very theoretical different world. You know, they've got Agenda 21 and Agenda 2030, and they want that thing to happen. Right? They really want that thing to happen. So in order for that to happen, they're going to have to reshuffle the deck, and they're going to have to get people to think differently about how they're living and where they're living and who they're living with, and then move them into those spaces. And that's the plan. That is the plan. So whatever's going to happen with petroleum and oil is going to factor into that. Right? It'll factor into that plan, and where people are ultimately headed. Do I think that it will manifest and actually be the new paradigm, and we're all going to be just herded into these green zoos? Not necessarily, but that's the plan, and that's where everything is headed. That's where it's headed. But what I don't see is anybody else coming up with any other plans. You know, I don't see those other plans. I don't. There's nobody in business or in industry or economics or I guess Bernie Sanders. I guess Bernie Sanders has a different kind of plan. But even Bernie Sanders' plan leads to Agenda 21ville. You know, it just does. It gets there faster. If you want to take the Acela Express to Agenda 21ville, jump on Bernie Sanders' plan. Okay. Venus-Uranus conjunction. I like this conjunction. This is a cool conjunction. Anybody meet any new friends this weekend? Anybody start any new relationships this weekend? Any interesting spark come into your life? Corona's not great for love life, is it? Hey, let's go out. Let's go out to a bar. Let's go out to a wine bar. Let's go meet some people. You go, there's nobody there. Where the fuck is everybody? They're all home drinking their wine. But this is an interesting spark. hopefully somebody somewhere out there, either in Chatlandia or in the free world, perhaps even the not so free world. What's love like in China these days? Can you imagine that? What's love like in China these days? I don't even know what love is like in China when this shit hasn't been going down. But what's love like in China these days? Man, that'd be interesting. Or how about Italy? Man, Italy that's a passionate group of people. I mean that's a passionate culture. That's a very tactile culture. You know, they hug each other, they kiss each other. You know, they feed each other. But now they're going to be on lockdown. Geez, that must be a rung of hell for the Italians. No, I'm sorry to hear that. It's just a real bummer. It's a definite lifestyle change. Anyway, you know, I hope they get better. I really, really do. I hope if anybody's suffering from this Corona stuff, I hope you get better fast. And I do believe that there are various strains of Corona going on. That's my take. And there are people who I've run across some of their accounts of having it, and not the sort of deadly or fatal kind. And trust me, apparently you don't want it. You don't want whatever the not so fatal cousin of it is. You just don't want it. All right. Let's see what we got in Chatlandia. Take care of yourselves. Keep your immunity up. Let's see what's going on in Chatlandia. I've been isolated. All the Cap 12th house stuff. Ooh, I'm sorry to hear that. What else they have? They have to stay 3 feet away from each other. That is so rough for the Italians. People trapped in the house with dead relatives. No help in Italy. Yikes. That is really bad. Really bad. Hey, ED, what's happening? Let's see. Exactly, Robert. We have more oil than we know what to do with. We have a lot of oil, that's for sure. And they want to build a pipeline right through this town. 2 new friends and a new job today. Congrats, Stephen. Way to go, buddy. Hey, there's Rob. What's going on, Rob? What's happening? Paula says, Robert, if consciousness can determine the future paradigm, then there are millions who dream of freedom, and they may have an impact on the outcome. Do millions of people really dream of freedom? And what is their version of freedom? I mean, Paula, I get that. I get where you're coming from, Paula. And I do, you know, on face value, I agree with you. But I'm not sure people really dream of freedom, you know. I think for some people, freedom is an abstraction and a hassle. And as long as they're free to do what they want, and you're free to do what you want, then I think that their version of freedom probably applies to them, but not vice versa. Not vice versa. I think there are people, it depends, you know, it depends on how accustomed you get place, you know, like let's take Cuba, for instance. You know, Cuba's been Cuba for a long time now. There are a lot of people in Cuba. Do you think they dream of freedom? Maybe they do. Or maybe they just learn how to live within the structures of their, you know, their dream, their collective dream. And that's why they're there. I don't know the answer to that, but I don't think millions of people dream of freedom. Could they dream of freedom? But then what does that freedom look like, you know, for each person? Because it seems to me now like the only thing that even remotely resembles some kind of topical freedom is the freedom to choose your sex. That's about it. All the other stuff would be considered, I don't know, hateful or selfish. You know, one person's freedom impinges upon another's. You know, like for instance, well, let's say my version of freedom would be, oh yeah, I want to be able to get in a car, and I want to get my car, and I want my car to be an 8-cylinder, nice big 8-cylinder, very comfortable. Let's make it a nice Mercedes. I like some of those Mercedes 8 cylinders. Those are cool. I want to get my nice Mercedes 8 cylinder, and I want to drive from here to Maine. And I want to go all the way down through the south, and then go up through the eastern seaboard, right up the tip of Maine. And to me, that being able to get in that car and gas it up, and have the financial wherewithal to do it in style, I do that. But there are some people who would say, well, geez, what about all the carbon emissions? What about all the carbon emissions that you're dumping into the atmosphere? Well, first of all, we are carbon, by the way. But what about that? Oh, your freedom is going to affect future generations. The sea level is going to rise because of your particular brand of freedom. All right, I'll make it a 6-cylinder. That's how it works, I think. So we're not even clear, I think, as to what freedom means. And I don't mean to dismiss your point, Paula. I think it's actually a really good point, and it brings up another level of what is freedom for people. What does it mean to be free? And I don't think we could all agree on that. I don't. I think for some people, freedom is terrifying. It's a terrifying prospect. True freedom would be terrifying. They wouldn't know what to do with it. And they wouldn't know what to do with the attendant responsibility that would go along with it either. I've done my lion's share in life to do my best in a lot of ways to be free. And the jury's still out. All right, let's get into some other stuff. That's a good question, Paula. Thanks for bringing that up. And I do think we could change. If we were of the right mind, we were of one mind, and we dreamed the same dream, of course, and we could dream ourselves right out of this existence if we were all aligned, Okay, let's see. What do we got? So look at Biden's chart. I wanted to see what was going on in Biden's chart. All right, I got some good charts tonight. Let me see. We got this. All right, let's line this up. Why don't we start with his natal chart? And I want to get into his progress chart as well. Let's see. Is this it? Let me just look. Oh no, it's the other one. Sorry. Stop share. That's the progress chart. Hold on. That's that one. Okay, so here we are. Joe Biden. Crazy Uncle Joe from Scranton. Isn't that where the office was? Scranton? That's funny. Okay, so what do we have here? We got Sag rising. The thing that really interested me about Mr. Biden's chart is the 12th house. And he's got a stellium. He's got a pretty intense stellium in Scorpio. Sun Venus conjunction, Mercury Sun conjunction, and then Mars Mercury. They're all hanging out together. But that Venus is at the 28th degree. He's a backdoor guy. He's a backroom dealer. This is not the chart of a president. I'm sorry. It's just not. It's not a presidential chart at all. This is a guy who's behind the scenes stealing money from Ukraine. This is what this chart is. He's a Scorpio who tend to be secretive, who tend to migrate towards positions of power and control if they're not refined or evolved. And he's and his sun is in the 12th house. You don't know who this guy is. And what we do know comes out in some bizarre interactions with children and a rapidly decreasing mental state. And he can't, it's really interesting. Like, when it was brought up kind of early in the campaign that he was making these young girls and women feel uncomfortable, and he's gotten a pass, which I can't wrap my head around it, because you've got all these women on the left who are adamantly Me Too, or no more, or what are cancel culture. You know what I'm talking about, right? And not one of them ever talks about Joe Biden. To me, it's just the most bizarre and insane thing I've ever encountered. It's just absolutely bizarre. You have all these, these pariahs of justice and social justice, and making sure that they're doing everything in their power to advance their cause, but Joe Biden's never in their crosshairs. It's just bizarre. And then he explained. He absolutely explained, or what did he do? He rationalized why he couldn't do it. It was just just the way he was. And after about a week or two of kind of getting a little heat, he's right back with it. He can't, in the natal chart, he can't let go. That's the nature of Scorpio. He cannot let go. He can't stop. He can't stop. Not now. The guy's going to be 80 years old. My God. Oh, Jesus. He's a wreck. He's a train wreck. The Democrats know it. And they're just hoping like hell they can figure out a solution by the time the so-called convention comes around. But you could also tell that he's making a lot of money behind the scenes. Look at this. Pluto, Jupiter, 8th house, other people's money. And what's Pluto doing? Just bleeding. Jupiter's just bleeding right into his 12th house, right? So we have the ruler of the 8th house being his son over here in the 12th. And so the flow, it's an easy flow, right? It's going from Scorpio's house right into his Scorpio sun. Bada boom. And Jupiter is grande, it's mas. Grande mas, a lot. Now the children thing is interesting, because this is the house of children right here, right? 5th house. And there's another fixed planet. It's moon in Taurus. Oh, what do we have here? Girls. This is feminine energy. This is very feminine energy with the moon in Taurus right here. And we have the moon, squaring Pluto and squaring Jupiter. But mostly what I'm really looking at is the square to Pluto. That's obsession. He can't stop. He can't stop. Joe Biden has an obsessive side to his personality, not only with the stellium in Scorpio, but with the moon square to Pluto. This guy has made a lot of money. I'd love to see Joe Biden's actual worth. He's worth a lot more than I think people have really dug down and tried to understand or find. Now look at that. That's interesting. So his Chiron is right on Trump's Mars and right on Trump's ascendant. That's going to be really interesting. He better hope he does not get into a debate with Donald Trump. I've heard that they're willing to sit him out of the debates. I've heard that. If we even get that far, I've heard that. They better hope that he doesn't debate Trump, not with his Chiron right on Trump's Mars. Trump will. There are two things that could happen with this. Trump will either absolutely destroy him, or he may wind up being, oddly enough, a more sympathetic character with Chiron there. So if they do debate, theoretically, Trump needs to be smart. He can't go in and just take a flamethrower to a feeble old man. That's not going to be a good look. And Biden might actually get sympathy points with his Chiron on Trump's Mars, because Trump will steamroll him. I'm telling you that right. Just with this alone, no matter what shape Biden is in, Trump will steamroll him totally. And he's got his true node in Virgo. I just don't think he's not presidential material, although it is conjunct Regulus, which is interesting. Now, Biden does have a sense of entitlement. Come on now. I've seen this. Which politician doesn't have a sense of entitlement, by the way? Huh? Neptune in the 10th house. What does he do? What does he do? What does Joe Biden really do? What has he really done? He's backdoors. He makes deals. He's a big-time deal maker. Jesse Jackson has come out and endorsed Bernie Sanders. Bernie isn't out of it. I will say this about Bernie. Bernie is lucid. He may be on autoplay and repeat, but at least he's lucid. At least he can make points. Biden, I'm sorry. He's just not there. He's not there. His south node is in Pisces, 0 degrees. Interesting. I can see where he's made money off of oil too. He's got that Saturn trine to Neptune. Saturn in the 7th house in Gemini. True node is coming down right here into his 7th house. So if he does get that far, and he does get into the convention and winds up being the actual candidate, of course, with the true node transiting through his 7th house, he's going to have a very sufficient running mate and or a partner, because as the south node goes into his 1st house, we're talking more decline. So we'll have to find somebody that can pick up the slack if he gets that far. I also wanted to look at his progress chart and to see what was going on there. His progress chart is even more troubling in some ways. Oh, wrong chart. Why did that happen? Pardon me. Here we go. Yeah, the thing that bothers me a little bit about his progress chart is that, well, first of all, by the time the election rolls around, his progress moon is going to move from 27 Aqua to 0 to, what is it? It'll be about 2 Pisces, maybe 3 Pisces right around because his progress moon is getting ready to leave Aquarius. And things get even more slippery with the progress moon. You know what this really looks like to me? Like what I'm seeing in his progress chart is like this guy is getting ready to go out to pasture. When I see the moon conjunction in Pisces with Venus, the moon is the home, and the 12th house, which is ruled by Pisces, is things like hospitals and sanitariums and assisted living. He's kind of getting into that territory here, and with Saturn in the 12th house, that's Pisces house, and it's getting ready to kind of move into Aquarius here, which is kind of a group situation. I mean, if he doesn't get, I don't know. This is tricky. Like I could see him actually being in assisted living. And I know it's crazy, right? Like here's a guy who looks like he's going to be the nominee for the Democrats for the presidency. And I think he's a few degrees away from assisted living. I swear to God, it's right here in the chart. Not a wise choice. Not a wise choice. He's got Pluto right there on his Mercury. Yikes. I mean, that's not bad, but in the 12th house progressed, his stuff's going to come out. His secrets are going to come out. And look, even here, right, with the South Node on Mars, progress Mars, he's about as strong. He's about as strong as he's going to be now, because he just had transiting Mars over his progress Mars. That's really interesting. That was kind of the lead into Super Tuesday. That's as strong as he'll be. That's as strong as he'll be. And that South Node is going to move into his progress 10th house. Now you look at Donald Trump, and you look at where the true node is going to be in his 10th house. In his 10th house, it's the true node, not the South Node. Couldn't be more different here. Could not be more different. And even if we were to go back to Biden's natal chart, that South Node would be in the first house. This is not a good time to have this guy, unless, of course, you want to sneak somebody in as his vice presidential candidate or have a brokered convention, in which case he will lay down. He'll lay down. We know Bernie will lay down. He's done it before. This is not a great chart for somebody running for. Neither of these charts are. Neither of them are. But particularly this one. This one is really bad. Really, really bad. I'd say this man is about a year and a half to maybe 2 years away from assisted living. Like if he doesn't get the nomination, or if he does and he has to bail out because of something, you're not going to see him again. He will disappear from the public eye. It's going to be really weird. Really, really weird. And there's no way in hell this guy will ever finish even the first year of his presidency. No way in hell. It's kind of sad, actually. It's really kind of sad. I mean, I'm a huge Joe Biden fan. I think he's slimy. But what's happening to him is it's almost like elder abuse, It's almost like elder abuse. Come on, get out there, man. Get out there. We know you can do this. All right. Where are we? David Goldberg's final words. Oh, David Goldberg. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. What else do we have? Ani Brito. I'm going to put in my resume, personal sniffer. Cruel. It is cruel with Biden. Totally cruel. Let's see. Big Mike. Could happen. Could happen. I've heard Big Mike. It is not humane to run this guy. I totally agree with you, Kate. It's terrible. It's elder abuse. Biden's literally senile, and they'll still be pushing him. Surely the DNC has some other plan. Of course they do. Of course they do. Yes, they do. Heather says he's going to have some hire him to sniff people for him soon. Oh, that's rough, man. That's rough, Heather. You hold the key to love and fear all in your trembling hand. Isn't that a lyric from a song? Bernie Sanders, Tulsi Gabbard ticket could be hard to beat. Could be. It could be, but I don't think Tulsi is a dyed-in-the-wool social democrat, and they won't even let her run the debates. But I do think Bernie would probably, if Bernie somehow got the nomination, and I think that'd be very difficult at this point. I do see him having a female vice president. I don't know if he and Tulsi would vibe, though. Although Tulsi is in Aries, and she's got 4 planets in Aries, and Bernie does have Mars in Aries. Maybe, could be. But I don't see that happening so much. Who would Bernie get? That's a really good question. I don't think that he would pick Liz Warren. I don't think that'd be happening. And Amy Klobuchar has already said that she already said that she's going to give her votes. She's going to support Biden. The big plan. Let's all drop out. Let's all drop out on Super Tuesday and support Uncle Joe. Yeah, right. Good plan. I don't know. I don't know who Bernie would pick. That's a really, really good question. Probably somebody obscure. Probably somebody obscure. Probably somebody that, people scratch their heads and go, what? Who? Oh, interesting. Okay. That's what I would think. That's what I think. Maybe pick Andrew Yang. Wouldn't that be something if that happened? That'd be interesting, but I don't think that's going to happen. Nope. Let's see what we have here. What else? Come on, people, now get together. Okay. Bernie has moon in Aries too. Oh, that's right. He does have that moon in Aries. Yep. Williamson for Max. Marianne Williamson. Yeah. Maybe Santa Claus. Hey, my buddy Justin's in the chat room tonight. And Justin has a new YouTube channel that he put out there. Justin, why don't you type in your YouTube channel in chat? I think I first met Justin back in maybe 2016, I think, maybe 2016. And Justin and I have been buddies, and Justin is really got into astrology. He bought my course, and he's been working on astrology, and I think he's got a new YouTube channel that I said I would talk about. So, Justin, why don't you and I'm proud of you, Justin, for making the leap and really getting into astrology. That's awesome, man. If you can put it in there, go ahead. And if not, I'll talk about it again sometime this week. Coronavirus taking out the elder population with all the heavyweight activity in Capricorn. Good call, Chinook. I would agree with that, 100%. Let's see, what else do we have here? Sarah Palin. Now that's quality entertainment. Sarah Palin was chosen to be vice president vis-a-vis William Crystal, the son of Irving Crystal, the great neocon. All right. Let's see. Anything else? What do we got else going on in Chatlandia? You bet, Justin. If you could put I don't know if you'll be able to put your YouTube channel in there, but look him up. I'll give another shout out to you later this week as well. I'll be sure to have the URL. All right. Hey, so I wanted to talk a little bit about the Spanish flu. Let me get into the Spanish flu a little bit. There's some interesting things that I found pattern-wise with the Spanish flu and the so-called coronavirus. So, as we know, the Spanish flu started in 2018 and it peaked, 1918, and it peaked in 1920. So 2 years and hundreds of millions of deaths later, this flu was devastating. Absolutely devastating. Of course, it was engineered. No doubt. No doubt. And it was coming right on the heels of 1917. And that's, of course, when the Romanovs were ousted by the Bolsheviks. And this is towards the end of this whole period with Woodrow Wilson. And Woodrow Wilson was the guy that was president at that time. He was a terrible president. I mean, he was beyond terrible. I said that Johnson was one of the worst presidents ever. He was the worst president of the 20th century. I don't know. Wilson was 20th century, but he was bad. He was really, really bad. Really bad. Why was he so bad? Well, he essentially worked with the banking cartel, the Rothschilds, through his hand guy by the name of Colonel House, and they started the Federal Reserve. They started taxation, the Tax Act, all 1913. Got us into World War One when the Lusitania sank, and then on his watch, it's the Spanish flu. I mean, the guy was an utter disaster. Utter disaster. Bad news. So, what was interesting about the Spanish flu was that, first of all, the first recorded case really, well, not really recorded, but it's created in a place called Sublette, Kansas, right around there. It's a county, but Sublette's the biggest town in the county that the Spanish flu was created. So I just used Sublette. And I used the high noon chart. So this is generally considered the start date of the Spanish flu. And what I found to be quite interesting was the nodes here. And then I started to look at some patterns with the nodes, especially with the particular Capricorn and Cancer. And I'll show you some interesting stuff. So here we have the true node being in Capricorn, really at the inception of the Spanish flu. Now, what's going to happen is that node is going to move into Sagittarius. And just as it moves into Sagittarius, and Sagittarius representing travel in foreign countries, the troops would be shipped to Europe. And the troops were, for all intents and purposes, living flu bombs. Each and every one of them had been weaponized. Not each, well, most of them. Some had obviously more difficult times with the flu than others, but they became weaponized. They were weaponized with the goddamn flu. And then they went over there and the French got the flu from them. And then what happened was the French and the Germans were fighting. And I think there was this one battle, and it was a really bad battle. And it wasn't just the battle that was bad. It was the fact that both the Germans and the French had the flu. And they were just dropping like flies. And the war was over not long after that, okay? So the great contribution of the Americans to that war was bringing living and breathing germ warfare to the war front. And there's a ship. It's not called the Corona, but it's called the Cardona, or the Cordonia. And that was the ship that brought the first big wave of troops over to Europe with these guys that had the Spanish flu. So it's not quite Corona, but it's kind of close, Cordonia. And then they bring it to the European theater. It goes from here, right? And what do we have, of course, during that time? It's January. We have Mercury in Cap, Sun in Cap, True Node in Cap, and they've been planning this for a while. And they just don't say, hey, let's cook up a nice little batch of Spanish flu and let's inoculate these guys. You don't do that overnight. I mean, it takes time. There's planning involved. So I would say probably that True Node was probably right around there, right coming out of maybe Aquarius. And what do we have here? We have the South Node. We have the South Node right here, conjunct the True Node. And what's the South Node going to do? It's going to go into Sagittarius. And instead of people going from here to being abroad, I'm assuming that when the South Node goes into Sagittarius, travel will become very difficult. Very, very difficult. These are where the transits are. Here we have the South Node in Cancer, right? And what is it doing? It's conjuncting Pluto. This is the chart for Kansas, right? And what is the United States? It is a Cancerian country. the Cancerian country. So we have the South Node conjuncting Pluto. And remember now, for this to for this to have occurred, it's not just like, hey, let's cook up a batch of this flu stuff. No, the South Node had to be wound up and probably somewhere in here. And to do it in massive quantities, that's an operation. That's a big operation, by the way, for 1917, 1918. Huge operation. So at some point, that South Node is crossing over the U.S. sun, which is at 15 degrees, right? It's picking up steam, picking momentum. It's going to hit that Pluto, and there it is. And Pluto's death, right? Pluto is death. And Cancer represents the home and the homeland. And the United States sun in this chart, by the way, I just put this chart together. But the United States sun would be right about there, right? Clearly, this was there was malice aforethought going on here. But the thing that grabbed me was like, well, look at the nodes. Look at the nodes. They're very close now. They're very close. They're almost at that same spot, albeit reversed, when the Spanish flu was first identified, the beginning of January. And when did we see this flu really start, or this coronavirus really start to come up? It was the beginning of January. It was like the 31st of December was when the crazy gal from the South Korean church of the end times and the rapture went to go pay a visit to Mr. Popey and grabbed his hand and wouldn't let it go. Man, that was a scene. That was a total scene. These are the things that really kind of stand out about this. Now, what's also interesting is that Chiron, while the soldiers would be away, Chiron and in the over the course of the next 2 years now, because it takes 2 years for this to really proliferate and just knock the shit out of everybody, primarily the soldiers, and the soldiers in this country or from this country, but also soldiers on the European front, European theater. And that Chiron is going to move into Aries. And what does Aries represent? It represents soldiers. It represents the military, warriors. So in Pisces, and we have Chiron in Pisces, of course, Pisces is the laboratory, but it would catch up in an Aries, and it would impact the the fighting men of all these different armies, and they feel very weak and very vulnerable. Trust me, with the Spanish flu. Uranus is in Aquarius then. I talked about this in 1917, plays a big role in the overthrow of the Romanovs. And I have talked about Saturn-Neptune conjunction, and it seems to be synonymous with revolutions and socialism as well. You go back to 1917, we get that Saturn Neptune conjunction. It's real tight in 1917. And we're coming up on another Saturn-Neptune conjunction in 2025 when Saturn moves into, when is it 2023 to 2026. When Saturn moves into Pisces and conjuncts Neptune in Pisces. But again, it's a similar conjunction, different signs, obviously. But again, what really grabbed me was the South Node. Okay, so in Capricorn, because it's a match, it's definitely a match, but it's albeit in a different position. But I've noticed something with these nodal cycles, and that there's a pattern here, and I'll show you. So if we go back to the last time we had the true node in, I believe it's Capricorn, which is just like what we had with the Spanish flu, right? That would have been in 2009. I'll even show you on the ephemeris. Just in case you don't believe me. Well, check this out. I'll show you. So this is 2009, and we have the true node moving into Capricorn right here in July. So a little over halfway through the year. Okay. Right there. So what happens in 2009? What's significant about 2009? Well, I'll show you. In 2009, we have, where is it? Right there. In 2009, we have the 2009 flu pandemic, also known as swine flu. Okay. So now we have the Spanish flu with the true node in Capricorn. And it's from early 2009 to late 2010. So it does pass through Aquarius, just like I think how the true node passed through Aquarius with the Spanish flu, and they were able to kind of wrap their head around this thing. And then it moves into Capricorn, and it's the same thing here. Same thing here. And by the time it hits late 2010, like I showed you in July of 2009, those nodes shift. And late 2010 is, well over a year. And it was the second. See, check this out, right? The 2009 flu pandemic, or swine flu, was an influenza pandemic that lasted from early 2009 to late 2010. And the second of the two pandemics involving H1N1 influenza virus, the last of them being the 1918, 1920 Spanish flu pandemic. The true node is in the same damn sign. It was in Capricorn during that time. I mean, hello. The universe is a clock, albeit in a new version. First described in April 2009, the virus appeared to be a new strain of the H1N1, which resulted when a previous triple reassortment of bird, swine, and human flu viruses. Further, we got an audio issue. Oh, thanks. Thank you. The mic's getting hot. Mic's getting hot. Hold on now. Going to the default microphone now. Okay. Thanks for that. So it's crazy, right? I mean, it's the same cycle. It's the same nodal cycle. I don't know how many synods it would have been, but it's crazy. And now we have another flu, or whatever this thing is, corona. And instead of the true node, it is the south node. The south node in Capricorn. So there's an interesting connection here between Cancer and Capricorn when it comes to these pandemics. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why. The difference here. Well, the flu pandemic in 2009, it was like, some people actually died to this thing. It started in Mexico. Some people actually died, but it wasn't as bad, obviously, as the so-called Spanish flu. Right? It's interesting. So if we back again, so 2009, then we'd have to go back to 2001 for the next cycle, the next synodic cycle with the nodes. And guess what happens in 2001?
it's not a flu, but we have anthrax. Anthrax happens. Remember that? Remember 2011, right? So here we go, September 18th, 2001, anthrax attacks. Commences letters containing anthrax spores mailed from Princeton, New Jersey to ABC News, CBS News, the New York Post, and National Enquirer. That National Enquirer guy died. So 22 people in total are exposed, with 5 resulting in fatalities. How about that? So we don't have a pandemic, but because the South Node is in Capricorn, the True Node is in Cancer, we have an anthrax scare that takes place. That was so bizarre, wasn't it, during that time? And it's like, oh shit, there's this 9/11 thing. Oh yeah, that's interesting. You know, you can see that kind of coming. Well, really, who's behind that? All right, yeah, not the guys who telling who's behind that. But then the anthrax thing like piles on top of that. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what is going on here? You know, what's up with the anthrax stuff? 2001 was crazy. The world has not been the same since 9/11, by the way. It just has not been the same. Not the same at all. Methanol poisoning, that's not really an anthrax attack. That's not really a pandemic. But I thought that was interesting, right? We're dealing with anthrax. Not as viral, but still kind of in that bad groove. Okay, so then I went back again. And this one is not as easy to kind of wrap your head around. This is when I believe the True Node would have been in Capricorn. So it's 1991. Let's see, here it is over here. This is it right here. And the 91, 92, starts in 91 and goes to 92. You don't see it. It's not going to show up here. But something did happen during this time. And the thing that happened during this time was something called Gulf War syndrome, where the soldiers were hit with these vaccinations, which is a lot like what happened during the Spanish flu. But again, like the True Node was in Capricorn right around this time. You can see it. It's right there. See, right there. Again, True Node in Capricorn. And we have Gulf War syndrome. We have this thing with soldiers, and Gulf War syndrome was horrible. But you won't read it here. You won't read anything about Gulf War syndrome here, because by the time 1992 rolls around, they're out of Iraq. Let's see what we have here. Yeah. Pretty much done by then, right? They're in and they're out. They don't spend a lot of time there. Kick some ass, take some relics, and impose more sanctions. Let's see. One of Bush's great humanitarian feats: pardons 6 national security officials implicated in Iran-Contra, including Casper Weinberger. When I was much younger, I was a mail carrier. I worked for the post office, postal service, and I delivered mail to Casper Weinberger's son. That's not much of a claim to fame, but you won't see this here. You won't see Gulf War syndrome. It's the same deal. These guys are coming home and and having a really, really hard time. Really hard time. Terrible symptoms, and then they were passing their symptoms and the stuff that they were experiencing onto their wives, right? I mean these guys, there were reports where they would come home and they'd have intercourse with their wives, and when they would ejaculate, it felt like It felt like they were, shooting flames into their wives. And the wives didn't know what to do. I mean, they were in serious pain. It was really bad stuff. But again, you're not going to read about it there. But again, it's involving this synodic cycle with the nodes. There seems to be something about this Capricornian, Cancerian opposition that brings out like versions of the plague. It's really interesting. It's interesting, And Saturn, is connected to Capricorn, and it's the Grim Reaper. And I've talked about this before, the Grim Reaper with the scythe in the fields and during the plague, during the bubonic plague. It's where we have this symbol of death, this idea of death, with the scythe and everything comes right out of that period of time. The harvesting of the human. It's the heart, and there are people that were witnessing these scythe-like characters, the characters with these scythes, where they had like this, these fumes coming out of these things that looked like scythes. They were actually fumigating the fields. Who knows what they were fumigating these fields with? But again, that image of Capricorn is, whether we understand it or not, it's embedded in our psyche. It's part of the archetypal expression of our images of death. And Capricorn seems to be an embodiment of that. So we get these kinds of Malthusian exercises, it seems, right? And just go all the way back to the Spanish flu. What did we see? We saw the true node in Capricorn, south node in Cancer. Here we all are all over again. These cycles are repeating. I thought I'd share some of that with you. Now, remember, the cycles do end, and the nodes are going to flip. They're going to flip into Gemini Sag. That'll be a really interesting show. I do think we're going to have some issues with the law with that south node in Gemini. I'm kind of piecing it together. The more the laws are going to be more suspect with that south node in Sagittarius and that true node in Gemini. And travel, people want to travel with Gemini. It's going to be really interesting. So, stay well, stay healthy, hang in there. You want to kind of witness this stuff. We're living through some very intense and powerful history, really powerful history. And it may seem a bit dark, and it may seem a bit senseless now, but the end of this chapter isn't written yet. It's just not. One of the things that I've spoken about is this idea that we're in what's called the fourth turning, and the fourth turning being this here in this country, being the kind of the final stage of an evolutionary process. And we've had a number of previous turnings. This last cycle starting in post-war America, which is the time of the hero, and I've talked about this. And this is the springtime of the United States, and there's a lot of babies being made. It's the baby boom. There's a lot of spring sprung during that time, and of course there was an abundance of heroes culturally. Everybody from John Wayne and Audie Murphy to Mickey Mantle. I'm sure there were football heroes, Doak Walker. It was a time of heroes. And then it moves into the time of the artist, which is the summer of America, which coincides with the summer of love. And then there's dissent and experimentation and questioning the social model. And then it goes into the fall of America, which is the time of the nomad. And that's when we get into the Reagan era. And that's where we have all of our, there's the most money, right? There's conspicuous consumption, and Ivan Boesky, and these Wall Street traders, and it's just a big money grab. Family Ties, Michael J. Fox, that's kind of the vibe then. That's the vibe, and that's because everybody's harvesting. It's time to harvest. It's time to harvest. We're way past that now. This is the winter of America. It is the fourth turning. It is the time of the sage. It is the time of the sage, and it is the time when people understand and know that we are headed to the end of the cycle. Now, there will be a springtime in America. It's going to happen. I have some ideas around that when it will happen, but it'll happen. And when it happens, there will also be heroes. There'll be a time of heroes again. But we're not there yet. We're not there yet. But it's still an interesting time to be alive, you know. And if we're in a period of culmination, think about this from the big picture. If we're in a period of culmination, collectively, perhaps historically, what about personally? How does that impact you in terms of culmination for you? What do you want to get out of this lifetime now? What do you want to get out of your life? It's not over, far from it. What do you want to get out of it? What is the quality of your physical relationship with your body, your spiritual relationship with your body, with other people? There's a lot of tread left on the tire here. Trust me. There's a lot of tread left on the tire. And these are things that we should be asking ourselves. Now, of course, we're moving into a phase where mutability and being flexible is going to be really important, really vital. Really vital. And so invent yourself or do something else or do something different, work from home, whatever it's going to be. That true node in Gemini, which is going to hit in May, right? It's going to hit in May. It's going to be all about versatility and being able to adapt. It's on our plates. You can do it. I have faith in you. All right, let's see where you're at. I'm going to wrap things up here. I was going to look at Bobby Fischer's chart, but we've done that before. All right, let me just check in with you guys. Let's see what we have. South direction, place to be 2024. USA will be in a down phase. But Texas will do best compared to the rest. Yeah, Texas, baby. They're still working on accepting me. I have patience. Let's see, what else do we have? Gonna have Saturn, then Pluto on my ascendant soon. Wow. That's so intense to have Saturn and Pluto on your ascendant. That is really a big lifetime experience. Congratulations. Keep us posted on that. That's really powerful. I mean, first of all, not everybody's going to Pluto cross their ascendant in their lifetime. And not everybody's going to have the Saturn Pluto cross their ascendant in their lifetime either. That's even rarer. I know a few people that are going through that and have gone through that. Those 12th house transits, Saturn and Pluto, are not easy. Not easy. But man, they won't change your soul, but they'll change your relationship with your soul. That's for damn sure. Okay, what else we got here? Anybody else? Keep us posted, Cato. Check Trump's chart right now. I mean, right now? I mean, this second right now? With, let's see, Gene. Robert, I'm the Leo sun, the 7th, and Capricorn rising, Capricorn moon, in the 12th. Groovy. Oh, good. Learn how to live and exist in dark places. Texas, October, baby. Yeah, Texas in October. Let's make it happen. Bring your H95 masks. You'll know it's not easy at all. Oh, look, who's here? It's Jolie. Hi, Jolie. Nice to see you. Good to see you. I have Pisces rising in my 12th. You do have Pisces, money. That's true. You know, it was really interesting. Oh, Zach Hubbard. Oh, yeah, Zach Hubbard, that guy. The 9/11. Yeah, Zach Hubbard's interesting. He was wrong about the Super Bowl. He was wrong about the Super Bowl. He thought that the Ravens were. He was totally into that Raven thing. He was a little bit wrong. But hey, he's interesting. I'll look at Trump's chart next week. I also next week want to talk about Algol. And Algol right now is at that 24 degrees. It's the chopping block. That's where it is right now. Let me see. What can I do here? Let me just. I don't have any charts at the moment that I can pull from. But we'll do it next week. It's a really important aspect. Historically, and also where we are now, right? We'll get into it. It's kind of an intense aspect. And I tell you right now, that's right on Trump's midheaven. I know that for a fact. And he's got Trump's the moon is going through Trump's 12th house, and I think right now, well, no, I take that back. The moon is going through his first house. It's just come off of his ascendant. I know that. And he's going to have a sun-moon square by Tuesday morning. That's a little tricky for him. Sun-moon square Tuesday morning. I know Trump's chart. I can pretty much figure out where the planets are. Mars in Aries is, let's see, he's got, Mars is going through his 6th house. No, what did I take that back? No. Mars in Capricorn right now, so that's going through his 4th house. 5th house? 5th house. Mars is going through his 5th house right now. Shouldn't be too bad. When he goes through his 6th house, that'll be tricky. When Mars gets into Pisces, just see, let me go back. That'll be 7th house. Tricky for him. Remember last time Mars was in Aquarius, and that was in his 6th house, and that's when Omarosa went after him. Remember that? She wrote that book. That was really an interesting astrological, like you want to talk about like a tropical mundane transit that really played out. Like that's when Mars, transiting Mars, was in Aquarius going through his 6th house, which is theoretically open enemies. And that's when Omarosa went after him. And Omarosa just happens to be Aquarius as well. I'm like, man, here it is. You see it right there. So he has that. You know, usually when Mars goes, that'll be 2 years ago. When Mars is in Aquarius, it'll be 2 years ago since that Omarosa book came out, which supposedly just skewered him. And by the way, have you heard anything from Omarosa lately? No, not much at all. All right. Thanks, everybody, for being a part of tonight's show. I really appreciate you. I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed being able to present this stuff. You can find out more about scheduling a reading with me, Robert Phoenix, at robertphoenix.com. I also have a pretty valuable, I think, astrological course that I sell on my website. And we had a nice little run on them over the holidays. It's, I think, one of the best values for learning astrology. It's a 16-hour course with lectures and with labs. And of course, I think one of my greatest accomplishments was downloading just about everything I knew with astrology to Heather Eland. And she's gone on to become an extremely successful astrologer, really good. And she's really grown. And I'm not saying that I, created her astrological path, because she was very, very dedicated. And she's, had other teachers and people have taught her other things, but, I helped give her the foundation, and she's really taken the ball and run with it. Now Justin's got his YouTube channel. So if you're interested in, being involved in this, I've got a really great course that you can grab and just have it right on your computer. Find that out at my website, robertphoenix.com as well. If you'd like to subscribe to this and the other shows that I do, there's a link that you'll be able to tap into and subscribe to this. And what else? 15 Minutes of Flame, Friday Forecast. So plenty of ways to interact. And you can always send me an email. A lot of people do. And I always answer them, do my best of my ability to. All right, I'm out of here. Have a great night. Have a great week. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible, and stay healthy. Stay healthy. Don't let the coronavirus or any other bugs push you around. All right, I'll see you guys on Tuesday.